the Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nation's S.H.Figuarts Golden Frieza from Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F and Dragon Ball Super. I was very curious when I heard this figure was coming out because I heard that it wasn't going to be a straight up repaint of the original Frieza, but a retool, redo of Frieza, which I thought was strange. The original Frieza figure I thought was fine, and there didn't seem to be much difference in the way Frieza looked in this new movie and TV show that I thought would require him to be resculpted, but they went ahead and did it. And I kind of appreciate that, not just giving us a straight up repaint of something we already owned, but I am curious to take a closer look and see how it turned out. Frieza comes with a lot of accessories and interchangeable parts, but it's not nearly as much as his original version came with, and honestly I'm kind of surprised by the lack of what we got. We do get a stoic head, a laughing head, a screaming head, and a smirking head, which I think is a great selection of facial expressions. I actually really love that laughing head. I think it came out great. We get a pair of fisted hands, a pair of open blasting hands, and one right hand with the finger extended for the finger beam that he uses. We don't get any interchangeable feet like the original version. We don't get any blasting effects. We don't get any tail effects. None of that fun stuff we got with the original release. And that does seem a little disappointing. The sculpting on Frieza I think came out pretty good. I like that they gave him this kind of overemphasized brow that is unique to this version. We have the bright pearlescent purple dome on top of his head, the standard Frieza ears, the outlines in the face with the red eyes, the kind of anime lines underneath, and his purple lips on a purple face. Going down the rest of the body, it feels like there's some gradation to the gold color, but I feel like it may just be a trick of the light. But the sculpting here is really good. The neck looks good, very muscular upper torso. This middle piece, the little purple piece in the center of his chest, is separate. I think that's to do with the articulation, but it feels kind of weird and you sometimes have to align it correctly. But the gold is a really nice color all over this Frieza. It's very reflective, picks up the light really well, and I'm really impressed with it. I'm hoping it doesn't show a lot of paint chipping over time, just being the way it is, but I think it's really nicely done. More muscular detail here in the back. We do get some copyright on the back, which makes me a little unhappy. There's also kind of a peg port up here at the top. I've noticed this on a lot of Dragon Ball figures, and I wonder if for some reason they were maybe planning to release a way that you can peg the stands right into their back like Ultraman or Mario. I think that would have been really cool to incorporate in this line, but unfortunately they never seem to do it. The arms are nicely sculpted. Definitely a different shoulder sculpt because he doesn't have the purple blotches on this one. The arms are also a little different, having the oval of purple rather than a large section of purple, I guess you could call it. Very simple lower torso. He's got the tail sticking out the back. The tail is also a little problematic with Frieza because they want to include that ball joint there, and it just kind of makes this weird butt section sticking out of Frieza. He only comes with the one tail. It's curled around in this kind of S shape, and I find it's a little annoying because Frieza being so back heavy with the tail, you almost want to be able to prop him up on the tail in some circumstances, and it really doesn't reach the ground well enough to allow you to do that. The legs continue on, a good muscular sculpt with the purple detailing here on the shins. And then we go down to his feet, just simple three-toed standard feet with some detailing on the bottom of them. For articulation, we have the hinge ball joint at the neck, so you can look up, down, as well as swivel side to side. We also get a ball joint at the base of the neck, so you can add extra articulation there, moving forward, back, and side to side in all directions with it. So you use those two joints together to get a decent range of motion, but he doesn't look super far up, so if you want him in a flying pose, you're a little hindered there. Double ball joint at the shoulder, which is pretty stiff on mine, but you can move the arm up, down, forward, back, as well as rotate forward, back, and out to the side. A bicep swivel, a really nice double jointed elbow. Standard Figuarts wrists where it will swivel, and then you have that one axis of hinge. You can kind of move the hand and change where that hinge is working. Getting mid-torso ball joint, which is kind of hard to move on its own independent of the waist, but you can crunch forward and back, a little side to side, a little bit of rotation. You get a lot more from the waist. Go pretty far forward and back at the waist, tilt side to side as well as rotate. He doesn't seem to have the effect where you could pull him apart to get more range, but he doesn't need it at all. You actually get a really good range of motion here with Frieza. The tail, as I mentioned before, is on not really a ball joint, but a double hinge joint, so it can swivel at the base of the body, which is really tight on mine. You also swivel at the base of the tail, and then you can hinge on whatever axis you want. Very similar to the wrist pegs, I guess. You can rotate that joint and change where the tail is moving. Leg joints are pretty standard. They will go forward, back, and out to the side. side. You could also drop down that joint to increase the range of motion. We also do have a swivel up there at the hip. Very nice double jointed knees with a good range of motion. And the joint at the foot is very similar to the wrist. You can hinge forward and back, rotate side to side at the top of the ankle, pivot at the bottom, and you could change the direction that hinge is on to really get a different range. But I feel like it works just fine the way it is with the hinge pointing forward because it gives you that pivot and that swivel up top. And for comparison, here's Golden Frieza next to the standard release Frieza or the original release Frieza. And you can see there is a lot of difference here. Granted, there's not a huge difference in overall height, but the build of the figure is very different. The heads are incredibly different. Much smaller head on Golden Frieza than the large head on the original release. In this Frieza, I have the battle damaged version of the tail, but you can tell the tail is very different as well. And overall, I'm just really surprised and honestly a little confused at the differences between these two figures. And here's our Golden Frieza next to the Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Son Goku. You can see a huge height difference that should exist there, but I think the two of them look really good together. And I think Figuarts did a pretty good job on this figure, but I am really concerned about his balance issues. I've just had a very hard time getting him in a pose where he's not just so back heavy that he falls over, which the original... That's really all just the sculpt of the tail. So I'm probably going to have to use a Tamashii stand to keep this guy looking good in my display, or else he's just going to be toppling and non-stop. But overall, I am going to give him a recommendation. I think the original release Frieza was a much, much better value for what you paid for him. But now he's gone up to astronomical prices, so not really one you could get your hands on too easily. And I really like this golden version. I think he looks phenomenal. I like the new sculpting on the head quite a bit. And I like that the Dragon Ball line from Figuarts is kind of getting reinvigorated with these new TV shows. It's really fun to see. So I recommend for Frieza, but not a super strong one. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews, and I won't stop making figure reviews until there's over 9,000.